Munani?
Yeah.
Okay. Morning.
Morning.
Okay. I feel so, I don't know what to say, after the doctors have spoken, it's very tough to come onto the podium and say anything. But anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and share just a few things with fellow finance professionals, I guess. But I'm sure there are more than finance professionals in the room. Okay, it's quite an honor to be here with you. Okay, all right. I'm going to be talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, whatever that means, I don't know. Why we still call it an industrial revolution, I don't know. Because in the past, I think industries was what was important. Industries is what was employing people. But whether we should still be calling them industries, I don't know. But if I use any other terminology, then you won't connect with me. So we'll stick to industrial, even though I personally don't believe it's industrial. Okay, all right. We'll basically look at what this industrial revolution is all about, what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. We will look at how it's currently impacting our lives, or it's going to impact our lives, and in the future, what's likely to come, and when it comes, what should we, as finance professionals, do in order to remain relevant or to be the drivers of change. Okay, right? If there's the fourth, that means there was the first, then there was the second, and then there was the third. Okay, and now we have the fourth. We're probably quickly going into the fifth generation. It's just that as we have moved from one generation to the next, the pace of change has become faster. So meanwhile, in the past, maybe it took close to 100 years to move from the first revolution to the second. Probably took 50 years to move to the second one, and it's taking maybe 10 years between the third and the fourth revolution. But I think now it will soon cut down to years, and then eventually to months, to weeks, to days, to seconds. The world is just moving so fast. Okay, all right. Let's look at the various revolutions, as they are called. Okay. We had the first industrial revolution. That's when we got the steam engines. Okay. That was big technology. It got everybody worried that people who used to carry stones or used to carry baggage from one place to another were all of a sudden going to lose their jobs. Okay. That phase came and passed. Then the next revolution was electricity. I'm sure for most of us it's hard to imagine that there was ever a time when there was no electricity. Okay. And with the birth of electricity, so many other things were born. Okay. After electricity came the third generation. Okay. Fortunately, some of us were born by then, or that's the time just when we were born. We will look at later, because we are one of the biggest beneficiaries or the biggest users of the third industrial revolution. That's when computers came about. Okay, so that's the time when a computer wasn't something that you carry in your hand. That's the time when a computer was probably as big as this conference room. Okay, and but the processing power was smaller than your phone in terms of capacity. Okay, then that time it's still around for some of us. And sorry, I always say for some of us it's the past, for some of us it's the present, for other people it's yet to be the future. And then now came the fourth industrial revolution. Probably if we think of the phone, the iPhone, it brought about, probably, it was one of the first gadgets or devices that made the fourth industrial revolution to be popular. The iPhone came into the market. Then people started talking about smart. Okay. Now I have a smartphone, I can now use an app, I can now talk to a computer, I can now use my voice to transact or to do various things. Right. So that's the age that we are in. It's the age of the internet. Okay. I think everybody now basically lives. Their life is centered around the internet. Their life is centered around the cloud. If there's no internet, we are dead. If we don't have connectivity, we are dead. I always talk and say, right now people are protesting for various things. People protest that there's no service delivery, that there are no houses. People protest that psychology exams are so difficult, they do not want to write them, they must be made, they must be made less tough. But I foresee in the next 5 to 6 years, people protesting that the internet at 5 gigabytes per second is not fast enough. Connectivity, data, is just going to be such a basic human right that there will be mass protests because it's just not fast enough. And not fast enough by today's definitions, but fast enough by 2025's definitions. Okay, all right. Then let's just see how some of these things have rolled through in finance so that we can always relate. Okay. You'll pardon me, some of the young people here. I keep this gray beard just to show you that I'm not young. I'm very young. Okay, all right. During my time, when I first went to work, that document there was high-tech. In order to produce financial statements, you had to, sorry, I always share this. I think it's become a song, but I think it's important so that we can tell where we've come from. I did my articles in 1992, I think. That's when I was in first year. To prepare a set of financial statements, you would get your trial balance from whatever form. I don't think there was a computer then. Okay. You would prepare your financial statements. You would actually use a pencil to write the financial statements. Okay. You will take pieces of A4 paper, put them together to do what we call an extended trial balance, to produce a trial balance. Then you have to be very friendly to the partner's secretary, because you then take that pencil-written set of financial statements to the partner's secretary to type the set of financial statements for you. Okay, you have your draft. You take it to the partner. If he doesn't like it, he tears it apart. Sorry for saying he, most of the partners were hidden. And gender equality was still not so, equality didn't exist at that time, sorry to say. Okay, take up, then it would mean that she has to retype everything all over again. Not just that word which is wrong or which is mistaken. Retype the entire set of financial statements because one thing was missing. Okay, so that's how important typewriters were. Without a typewriter, you wouldn't have had financial statements. And this is probably about almost 30 years ago. Right. Fast forward to that, computers came about. Not so great. Lotus 123, we're using Lotus 123 to prepare financial statements. I'll tell you a case. I was working for one of the big 4 firms when, before IFRS, there was something called Financial Reporting Standards. When we moved from the Statement of Standard Accounting Practices to financial reporting standards. We had to prepare, financial statements. Sorry, I explained how financial statements were done. You do it on a piece of paper, you join these A4 papers in order to come up with a trial balance, and then you give them to a typist to type. Then when computers came, we advanced. We started using Word, MS Word, for preparing financial statements. Right. I was working for one of the big 4 firms, and it was a policy and the standard that you prepare financial statements using Word. Right. Then illustrative financial statements came on financial reporting standards, which then led to international financial reporting standards. And I, thinking that I was being creative, I took the IFRS template, I put it in Excel, and I produced financial statements. I was disciplined by the partners for preparing financial statements in Excel. Fast forward that, almost 12 years ago, I work for a municipality in KZN. Right. What do? Just come from the private sector. I've joined the municipality. I think it's crazy to prepare financial statements in Excel. I take Caseway before there was a grab financial template, and I prepare financial statements. And guess who calls me to task? Should I mention the name? Treasury and Copter. How can Caseway be used for preparing financial statements? No, and it's not too far ago. It's just less than 12 years ago. Before there was the so-called grab template. This cannot work. It cannot conform. It's not allowed. It's illegal. My argument then was, are you worried about what we use to produce financial statements, or are you worried about the financial statements that we produced? If your results, if your worry is about the financial statements that will be produced, please don't worry about the input or how we're doing the process. Just worry about the end product. And by the way, as a result of that, or as one of the contributing factors, a municipality that was so famous for consecutive disclaimers moved from those disclaimers to an unqualified opinion in 1 year. Actually 9 months. I'm just saying, I just want you to relate, because the reason why I want you to relate is every time that there's new changes, every time that technology improves, we always think that it will not work. It's a tendency. I don't think it's your tendency. I think it's a human tendency. It's a human nature. We are so scared of innovation. We are so scared of technology. We are so scared to try because we think things will go wrong. Maybe if we've shared some of this history, you will be a bit more welcoming or a bit more acknowledging that change sometimes can bring good. We always resist, then when it has eventually come and is passed, we find it very difficult to go back to the old methods. I can imagine, Mr. Ngobo, if I'm to give you manual ledgers and pens and green pens and red pens and whatever, and ask you to produce a trial balance, I think you'd think we're crazy. Okay, all right. Well, we were talking about the journey that accountants have come through. So computers then came, okay? When computers came, there were rooms that were called computer rooms. They were put under serious lock, and the person in charge of the computer room was so important that they're probably the highest paid people in an office. So you go there, give them whatever it is they type for you, and that was a job. Huh? Okay. Then PC came about, laptops came about. Once again, I was almost fired by managers because I got a laptop that had a 16 megabyte hard drive. Wireless hard drive, not RAM. Wireless managers had 8 megabyte hard drive laptops. Okay, all right. And look in terms of where we were storing our information. Floppy disks, stiffy something. I think they used to store something like 1.4 megabytes of data. And it's because that's the amount of information that was available at that time. Okay. All right. Fast forward to now. What do we have? We now have real-time processing of transactions. We've got the cloud, we've got mobile, the social media, we've got what we call the Internet of Things. Payments are now no longer done the traditional way. Okay. The traditional way of paying is you take cash out of a pocket, you go to over the counter, you give somebody the money, they give you goods. Not so long ago, we're using checks. Okay. Some of us still do. Okay. So that's how payments were done. But the methods of making payments, they've changed. Okay? Unfortunately, some people are misusing it. Okay? You can take a payment from my pocket without me even coming to the counter. Okay. Right? Big data has come about. So the volume or the amount of information that is out there, it's so enormous. And what has happened? It has changed the way that business is done. Who is running the biggest companies at the moment? It's people that can access data, combine pieces of information, and create value out of those pieces of information. Think of a company like Uber, okay, that owns absolutely nothing. No taxi, doesn't employ a single driver. It doesn't own a GIS system, but it's making the most money out of that just by connecting somebody who needs to ride a taxi, by connecting somebody who wants to eat to a restaurant, to a taxi driver, to a taxi owner, to a taxi driver. They are making billions out of that. Okay. All right. I always give the Uber Eats example to say, compare your traditional transaction some 20, 30 years ago and to a transaction now. If I log into Uber, okay, and order a meal, I can buy food for somebody in the US right now. I could buy food for somebody in Iraq. I'm based in South Africa. I'm banking with a South African bank. I'm ordering food to an American company, which is registered in Ireland. And in less than 1 second, or maybe 1 second is too much, in 5 seconds, a transaction has been started, initiated, processed, and concluded, and payments done in 5 seconds without a single paper trail. Let me say visible paper trail. You are the auditor. You trained, you became an auditor during my time, when accountants were generally called bean counters and we were called tickers and ushers. Right? To us, auditing meant putting that green tick to say this agrees to that or this is, we verify. That's what auditing was about. How are you now going to audit a transaction like the meal that I bought through Uber Eats? And which legislation? If I buy a meal now for somebody who's in the US, let me mention another country. If I buy a wife for somebody who's a meal for somebody who's in Zimbabwe at the moment, which tax legislation am I applying? Let's just talk about tax. Then in terms of the profits that have been made, in order to tax that profit, who? In terms of consolidating that transaction, which country must eventually consolidate that country? This is a transaction that has happened in less than 5 minutes. or in 5 seconds, maybe in 5 minutes, maybe maximum if you're slow, if your computer is very slow. So as accountants or as finance professionals, we need to start thinking and asking ourselves whether the way that we go about conducting our accounting is relevant. Auditors. When you come after a year to do your audit, are you going to audit that transaction that took 5 minutes to do 12 months later? Is it still relevant? Is it still of any value? I think these are some of the questions that we should start posing to ourselves. So as auditors or as accountants, right? If I don't know if it's the IT people or whoever, and most of these people who are doing those businesses, they are not madalas with gray beard like me. These are 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds who are developing these tools, who are doing these transactions. These are the young people that don't believe in working hard or working at all. They believe life should work for them. We believe we should work for life. So we should start thinking and accommodating them. So as auditors, that's what I'm asking. So I'm sure auditors, there are auditors in the room. When should you be auditing that transaction? Should you be auditing a transaction that took 5 minutes, instantly, affecting more than 18 different parties? Should you audit that transaction after 12 months? I personally think no. I think you as auditors should devise tools, systems that should audit that transaction as it is happening. That's what I think. Because I'm sure in the next 5 years, all our transactions will as a minimum be that. By the way, there will be something new that I can't even tell what it is right now. This is how we're transacting now, or this is how we'll be transacting next year, or in 2 years' time. But in future, it's going to be different. And we always talk about those things and we think, no, it's not a reality, it can't happen, it's too far-fetched, it will never happen in South Africa, this is Africa. I'm very happy that I got a call on Friday from some gentleman who once attended one of those sessions, and they came to me and said, I always talk about these things that are not practical, they're not a reality. I think they went to Germany somewhere. They said, you know what? I am in a chicken whatever farm. They are producing 40,000 eggs a day, and there are only 4 employees. And I said, this is amazing, how is this possible? So I asked him one question. I said, tell me, how many people are unemployed in Germany? And he said, it's less than 3%. And I said, yeah, you remember you're complaining to me that technology is going to take away jobs. So with all this technology that you are seeing, why is it that people are still employed? I said, no, all that technology does, it changes the forms of jobs. And I think it creates more exciting jobs. So it replaces the pedantic, boring, lousy jobs where people are actually not busy, but pretending to, spending 8 hours producing work that should be produced in 10 minutes. We do that, we are human beings. Okay? All right. Then I'll also talk very quickly about, I call it, sorry, before that. I call it the present future. I don't know. To some it's the future, to some it's the present. So we'll call it present future. Okay? I'll show you a lot about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, maybe put in a nutshell, this is whereby humans are now interacting with machines to perform those functions that were usually done by physical human beings in the past. Okay? The world is changing. We've got blockchain now. We've got cryptocurrencies. In the past, or 20, 30 years ago, when Bitcoin came about, we all wrote it off as a fuss. We thought it was one of those triple M or pyramid schemes. But the reality is that cryptocurrencies are a currency. And I think for our comfort, if the big four accounting firms are now accepting these currencies as currencies, I'm sure when fellow accountants do some things, then we tend to believe them. Okay, right. Now, accounting transactions are done using chatbots. So they are chatbots like PEG. So you're actually able to initiate, process, finalize the transaction using chat. Okay. Actually, my presentation is very old, right? Because I was then overtaken by events, and thankfully, it happened, or it's happening here in South Africa, and I'm just about to switch banks. Okay. I don't know. I'll probably think that maybe I was the only professional accountant, one of the first people to join Capitec, because Capitec had a very simple logo, which was saying, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I like the way that they innovated. I like the way that they used technology. But I think somebody has beaten them to it now. I don't know if there's any ABSA bankers here. ABSA has introduced WhatsApp banking. So when WhatsApp came, we saw it, we thought it was a joke. Don't know what these guys are doing. As usual, when something comes, we always despise it the first time. When technology comes, we always despise it. 4 or 5 years down the line, it's your way of life, you can't do without it. Okay? For example, some of us would go to church, a pastor comes carrying an iPad to deliver a sermon, and everybody's like, no, this is the end of the world. How can you use an iPad to preach? You should read the Bible. You can't have a Bible inside an iPad. It was taboo, it was unheard of. Come 5 years down the later, people say, oh no, look, you're still using a Bible. The same people that were criticizing the same pastor for reading the Bible from an iPad, we do the same. WhatsApp came about, we still think, no, it's highly informal, you can't do official business on WhatsApp. But if somebody pays $19 billion to a former rejected employee, so the owner of WhatsApp went to Facebook, applied for a job, he wasn't good enough, they rejected him. Some 5-6 years later, the owners of Facebook went to him and bought his business for $19 billion US. Yeah, but if we say today, accountants, finance people, let's explore and see how we can use WhatsApp for doing our finances or for doing our processing. A lot of people will say they're a joke. It's not professional. It's not the way that business is done. But if our bank is doing it, why can't we trust it? If somebody paid 19 billion to an employee that you refused to employ because they were not good enough, why should you not use it? Okay, right? Then, smart accounting is coming down the line. I'm sure those of you that attended CIGFARO last year, you saw some of the small innovations that we are doing. We're using Alexa to obtain information from your accounting system. So instead of you waiting to sit down, look into your laptop to get your customer balance, you can actually ask a device, you can actually ask your device what information, you can ask for your customer balances, you can ask what the last transaction was, you can tell it, look, Alexa, I traveled to Nigeria today on a business trip. We're helping to do data analytics, presentations. They're already doing it. Point of sale. You go to other airports, your entire experience is done with a robot. Okay? Please don't be afraid. I know once we talk technology, people are scared we're going to lose jobs. You lose jobs if you want. You can choose to substitute your present job with a more exciting job. Okay, all right. I want to say, so what is the effect or the impact to the finance of this fourth industrial revolution? In the past, we used to spend a lot of our time processing transactions, okay? And then quite a bit on reporting, a bit on controls, and then very little on strategy. I hate to use the word strategy because I think this word is abused, especially in our environment where people do strategies each and every day. That alone is a problem. Huh? So you have a daily strategy. Okay, all right. Maybe the word strategy should be replaced with thinking and generation of original ideas. So what artificial intelligence will enable us to do is to move from, well, transaction processing, I think we've reached a stage whereby almost everything can be input from source using technology. Literally everything. So we don't have to capture, we don't have to input anything. That can be captured from source. There's B2B technology. If a company raises an invoice in their, if a supplier raises an invoice on their accounting system, I shouldn't have to capture that invoice because that my system should be linked to theirs. So as they raise an invoice, a supplier invoice, my system should automatically pick that up as a data invoice, for example. Right. So transaction processing should be something of the past. We've already seen that. I think in the past, we would go and print bank statements and start capturing them into cash books. I don't know if anybody still does that. Import cash books, or you get a live feed from your bank into your cash book, and that gets automatically allocated to your customer accounts. It's already happening. This is not technology. Reporting, a lot of things are now, automated. Your financial statements, I think, are almost 90% automated. And if you as accountants want, you can get them 100% automated. But the only reason you are not doing that is because you are scared, so what would be my relevance? So you actually assist to block. You let the IT people sit and prepare financial statements where you'll come up with financial statement production software instead of you driving that process, because you make your life easy. So then controls that can be automated to a large extent. Then instead of strategy, what I'm saying is, I think we should replace that with original ideas. So we should be spending most of our time originating ideas for technology to implement, for technology to apply. I was saying I have a problem. We're talking about master's degrees and PhD degrees. We've got a lot of, I come from a country whereby we probably have the highest number of PhDs in Southern Africa. But what do we do with our PhDs? We don't put them into application, which is a problem. So if we have knowledge for its own sake, it's a problem. So as accountants, if we replace that strategy with the original thinking, the generation of new ideas, new technology, new ways of doing things, then we get machines to apply and do that for us. I think then augmented reality will be a reality where we and machines and technology work together to make not only South Africa a better place, but the world a better place. Thank you.